Hi, everyone. Megan here from Romance by the Book with the lovely Marielle. And today
Hello.
our awesome guest is Talia Hibbert, the author of our April Book of the Month, Act Your Age, Eve Brown, which we have really enjoyed reading. And
Yay.
so we're going to chat with her about that. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
So Talia's been with us. She's taken over our page several times. She's one of the first. I mean, I don't think one of the very first, but you were among the first group of authors that came and did takeovers, and that we were always so excited because your books, we had read even your independently released books, and then now you've got this series that's with Avon. So it's been super fun to see all of the things that you do. So much writing.
Thank you.
We did ask some questions from our DM group, and some of them are us. So
I think that actually leads well into your question, Marielle, that you had, which was about the indie versus publisher.
Yeah.
I did have a question about that. How do you decide which books are more appropriate for independent publishing and which ones are better for traditional?
Well, it's weird because obviously for a large part of my career, I was only self-publishing. And so I didn't really have to think about what was or wasn't appropriate. It's like, I want to write it, so I'm going to throw it out there. And now that I do have kind of the opportunity to traditionally publish some books, I feel like if I am going to traditionally publish a book, it's usually an idea that I get that I think, wow, that is kind of really commercial. And so it could really benefit from and work well with the much wider reach that traditional publishing has. Like, for example, the Brown Sisters books were my first proper rom-coms. And because rom-coms were so popular at the minute, I was like, I think that would be great to do with traditional publisher. Whereas on the other hand, I get a lot of stories that are maybe more niche or specific. And so I'm confident that, I can reach quite a few of the ideal readers on my own. Just because I feel like niche romance reading spaces, they have strong online communities and they're maybe a bit easier to access if you know where to go. So a lot of the time, that's what guides my decision.
Oh, that's good to know. I did a writing workshop where they were speaking with an agent, and one of the things they mentioned was that a traditional publisher is looking at kind of shelf space and places like retail places where the book would be displayed and sold, and that if you are writing or publishing a book independently, you can kind of bypass that retailer and go straight to the reader.
Yeah.
So some things that are super popular in an independently published might not find a home as well in trad. So I was interested in your thoughts, and that makes a lot of sense that you kind of do it the same way with the rom-coms. I love the covers that you got for yours too. I feel like they look gorgeous together and individually.
Thank you. I love they're so cute. I love how colorful they are. It makes me happy.
They have little I feel like each one has a little something that is like a nugget for once you've read the book, you kind of know what the little cat is or what that's all about, which is fun.
I get you. Yeah, that's fun.
So my main question was about the Brown Sisters. I loved them so much. But when you were brainstorming about them to begin with, who was most clear to you first? And did that affect the order that you chose to write them in?
Definitely. The whole series kind of spawned from me imagining Chloe. Everything started with Chloe.
Okay.
Because when I decided to write a rom-com, I was like, okay, I want to write a rom-com about chronic pain because I think it's an underrated dark comedy moment. So I was dreaming up a heroine, and I came up with Chloe, and it was first of all, she's definitely an older sister personality type. So who are her younger siblings? And that is how I came up with Danny and Eve. So as soon as I decided there were three sisters, I knew I wanted to write a book for them all because romance, but it definitely started there.
I am an older sibling.
Same.
I have three brothers, and I did feel that older sister energy coming from Chloe.
I only have a brother also, but yes, I'm the oldest, and it's definitely a vibe you can feel. It's fun.
I'm glad I got that right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I also really loved the beginning of that book. Like, what an amazing introduction to the whole family, because you get to see, well, you see Chloe kind of walking, and then she has that near miss with the car accident. But once she gets home, you immediately see kind of the differences between the way her Gigi handles it versus her mom versus, and just kind of that it was really fun. It was really fun to read. And you're right about the rom-com. Like, it was very funny, even though it was dealing with a person who has some limitations maybe that worry her family, or where if she didn't come home on time, they might panic. This is really fun.
Thank you.
I was gonna ask something and I forgot. So sorry. I guess.
You want to go? So I guess going back to Eve Brown, since that's the book that we read for this month.
Yeah, that's true.
We did have some questions about Jacob, if you want to.
I did have a question about Jacob. He is a very prickly hero. And I think in other books that I've read, when you have a prickly hero like that, they also tend to be a little bit reclusive. And
Like
I
a
felt
loner.
like Jacob definitely could have been a loner, but you gave him a really close and kind of tight-knit community and a group of people, like a friend group that was really loyal to him. I was wondering what made you decide to do that with him.
There were a couple of reasons. The first was that when I was writing Jacob, I was like, usually when I'm writing heroes, they're all very sweet and lovely, because I'm like, if there's going to be a man in this book, he needs to be a nice man. But with Jacob, I was like, I really want to write a hero who's kind of an asshole, but I still wanted him to be a good person. And so as I was writing, he is kind of very loving and very loyal despite having no patience for anyone. So I was like, it makes sense that he has kind of accidentally collected loved ones and they're all around like, you're great. And he's like, oh my God, please go away. But
It reminds me of that meme I saw one time where they're like, introverts make friends, either an extrovert adopts them or like they just decide they're fine. Like, that's like the two things.
Exactly. And then I think the other thing was that with Jacob being autistic and that affecting him a lot socially, I kind of wanted to show that, because I think that a lot of autistic people who are very socially affected have had maybe negative experiences and might worry that they're never going to have that kind of tight community. And I wanted to show that you can have that, even if, you're not that great at like masking, you can still be popular. Like, I think Jacob is pretty popular, so
He really is.
Well, and even the people that stay at the B&B love him. Like the couple that Eve spoke to that first morning in the kitchen, where the husband talked about, all the accommodations that he can make, if you call to make a reservation or whatever, and how touched she was by that. And it's like he does these things, and some people might not know about it, but like the people who are close to him know that he's good.
Exactly.
Well, and I love how Mon could call him out on some of his things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that I don't know, like even when he seems to get like annoyed with Jacob, it's still loving, and it's still like he's still going to be there for him, even if he has to guilt Eve into staying taking care of the end. It's fine. We'll still take care of you.
OMG, Mont. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
I have to say that I wanted Gigi to have her own story, but I've been like stalking Talia. I don't know if she knows this, but a couple times she before you came out, you did a couple of interviews, and I was like, when's Gigi's story? That was always my question. Which fine, she already has a person in her life. It's okay, but I love that character so much too.
Fabulous.
And I'm happy for Mont and his sisters. I guess this is where I ask you about the ducks.
Oh, yes.
Jacob, hates ducks.
And
He will wake up from a
birds.
dead sleep if he hears a quack on his property, and run out naked. No. I wondered if that came, I mean, it's ducks and geese as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Did that come from a particular story, or is there like an inspiration for this feeling of his?
Yes, it's kind of a weird long story, but when I was finishing Danny's book, I went on holiday with my boyfriend to the Lake District, which is where Eve's book is set. And there were obviously loads of ducks there because there's loads of lakes. I, for some reason, had not considered that before we arrived. And I was distressed by the number of ducks because my grandma had her arm broken by a swan, right? So this is like a legendary family story. So she was eating a ham sandwich.
So this is like a multi-generational
transgenerational
animosity.
So she was eating a ham sandwich, which is the funniest part of the story because she's a vegetarian, but sometimes she eats ham sandwiches. So she was eating a ham sandwich on the banks and a swan came over and wanted her sandwich and she was like, no. And basically it broke her arm trying to get this sandwich. So ever since then, she's always like, don't trust swans. Swans are terrible. Stay away from swans. So I obviously have grown up with this anti-swan message in my head. And then I get to the Lake District and there's like swans and ducks and geese everywhere, quacking at you if you have food. And I was on edge. I was like, this is
these are aggressive.
Oh my gosh, that is crazy.
I will tell you that I in our DM group I brought this up because obviously I'm like fixated on it. But somebody said, "Oh, I think everyone
has a duck
story.
Ever
met a duck has a duck story." And I'm like, "Well, I have a duck story. I have a goose story."
Oh my gosh.
Also, the only time I have ever met a swan, it chased me off like a property. It was like, so apparently I think those, I mean, I read the Tale of the Trumpeter Swan, I think when I was a kid, and I had this very idealized vision of what swans were. So when I actually met one, it was real aggressive.
Oh my God, they are menaces to society. The amount of people who read the book and were like, oh, I agree, ducks suck. Like...
I'm glad I'm not the only one. Oh but God. Also, is your grandma okay now?
Oh, she's totally fine. She was fine at the time. She's pretty hardcore. She was like, yeah, it broke my arm, but I've still got my sandwich.
Oh wow.
Oh God, that's hilarious. Oh wow. That's awesome.
Grandma won then.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the questions from our DM group was them discussing the banter and how great it is in your stories and like the word choices that you use, especially for the curses. They love how creative some of them are. And so they kind of just wanted to know about like when you're writing the witty banter like that, how do you use it to keep the story moving?
I think there's a couple of things with my kind of choice in curse words. I have to give credit where it's due. I feel like it's because I grew up around a lot of old people because I had 3 grandmas and I spent most of my time with them because my mum was always at work and they all had their old friends and old people curse amazingly. Like,
I imagine old British people curse even cooler than over here. I bet that's awesome.
It's always like either amazingly filthy or really funny, or sometimes both. So, and with banter, I feel like a lot of the time for me, I write it best when I say it out loud. And I think I'm inspired a lot by like music, maybe. I think that conversations sound a lot more natural and also show like a lot more of the energy and spark in a relationship when they sound kind of lyrical and they have a faster flow. So I tend to speak it out loud when I'm writing.
Do you speak it like to a rhythm usually, or like are you looking for it to have a rhythm to it?
I feel like I am looking for it to have a particular rhythm, but I couldn't explain what the rhythm is. Like I'll say it and I'll either be like, yeah, that's good, or I'll be like, ugh, that's horrible. And then I just have to fix it somehow.
You just know it when you find it.
Yeah.
So speaking of rhythm, you had like a playlist in this book, and obviously both Eve and Jacob were big music fans, and I was curious if you only really did that because these particular characters warranted it, or if you always have your own private playlist that you're using when you're writing stories.
No, it was only for these characters. I know a lot of authors have playlists, so I always feel really bad when people ask, and I'm like, sorry, no.
Well, I'm glad you gave it to us this once.
Yes, and it fit them perfectly, so that was great.
Yay.
Next question is also from our DM group, I think. Oh, no. I think that was it, right?
Well, we have two questions that we always ask everyone who comes on with us, and mine is, what is your favorite trope to read?
Ooh, my favorite trope is marriage of convenience in like contemporary settings, especially. I think.
Nice. I just read one of those recently from Naima Simone, I think, that I loved.
Really?
I love A Marriage of Convenience.
I love anything Naima Simone writes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I feel like she can write like my most hated trope, and I'm like, yes, please.
The last one was a second chance secret baby, and I was like, how did you make me love this? I don't understand.
I always remember, I think it's called Sin and Ink.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
They hear about
the dead brother's wife. Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, oh my gosh. But then I was reading it and I was like, yes.
Yes.
It's amazing.
I did the same thing. I was like, I don't think this is my thing. And then I was reading and I was like,
she makes it your thing.
It's amazing. I also read Farah Heron. She accidentally engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read that one?
I literally
it just came out a couple weeks ago, right?
Dresser, yeah.
Yeah, it was. I think it was out this month, but it was like the parents had arranged for her to meet this man because they wanted her to marry him, and she was just like, "No, I'm not meeting him. I'm not marrying him." But she had already met him because he was like her neighbor, and so
I remember now, yeah. But he's like really great.
Yes. And then this book, two things. First, it made me really enjoy like the idea of baking bread. Like I now want to make wilderness. I don't remember the right word for it. I want to call it like wild yeast, but I think you can like harvest yeast from the air. And I'm like, yeah, I'm very curious to do it. But anyway.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that has nothing to do with actual romance of the book, but I was like, I want to make bread now. And also, yeah, it was a marriage. It was a really kind of fun, like arranged marriage that they were like, no, but maybe we'll do a fake engagement for this particular purpose, but we don't like each other. And I'm like, you guys, you're in trouble. It was so good.
A fake engagement is a slippery slope.
Definitely. And then I'm going to ask your question, Marielle.
Oh, yeah. My question is, if we were to catch you, like if we were a fly on the wall when you were in the middle of deep in your writing process, what would we see?
It depends on which part I'm writing, but this morning when I was writing, I kept like giggling. Nothing funny was happening. I was just really excited. My boyfriend came in like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Nothing, go away."
Oh, that's funny.
That's awesome.
I guess, and sometimes you're talking to yourself to make sure that it's the right rhythm.
Yeah. So just a lot of weird noises, basically.
That's fun. This past year you have a new house, so you moved?
Yes, we moved in the middle of the pandemic.
Always the best time for big changes.
Oh yeah.
I feel like a lot of people had big upheavals like also in the middle of this, but does that mean that your writing space has changed?
Yes, really happy with how it's changed. So before, I was living at my mum's house with my boyfriend. So we were in this one room, and my bed was here and then my desk was here, and it was fine. But every so often I'd be like, oh, it'd be really nice to have an office and just be like in a very different zone, you know? So now we've moved here and I do have an office, and I vastly underestimated how much I would love the office.
Yay.
It's
I feel like
amazing.
even better than you dreamed.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Like, it's just cool to be able to shut yourself either in or out. It's good for switching zones.
Yeah. I could see that. I think that people who work from home really benefit from having like some separation of
Yeah.
home life, work life.
It's hard. My husband's been working from home mostly for the last year, but he was occasionally going into the office. And then for the last, like, since December, they were renovating his office. I guess they decided like half the people weren't there anyway, so it was a good time to just go ahead and do it. And so then he didn't have an office to go to. So he like set himself up a little cube out in the garage, which was fine for the winter. But now that it's getting hot here, we live in Georgia, so it's starting to get, it's like 80 degrees today, and the garage is too hot. So he had to break everything down the other night. And so, yeah, then this morning I was like, oh, I'm going to record. And I was like, oh God, we only have one desk. What am I going to do?
Is
So,
that
yeah,
could be the new
yeah.
That can be the new pandemic trope. It's only one desk.
Yeah. So that would actually be fun if it was one of those like shared workspace type places where a lot of different people like, just rent a desk, and like they like accidentally rent two people the same desk and they got to figure out how to make it work.
I'm just gonna quietly write that down.
I would love it. I would love it. So,
and that would be really fun.
Just reasons they can't just find another place. They have to just figure out how to share the desk.
Oh, it's the only place they could afford.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I wonder how places like that, how long it's going to take places like that to come back. Like places where you just rent a little space and or your own office, and it's just like a room or a suite full of people that you don't really know and stuff. Like, it's weird, the things that we used to do that now seem like insane. I don't know when that's going to change.
I think that is coming back.
Is it?
I saw it somewhere recently and I was like, oh wow, we're doing that again.
Yeah.
I knew a couple, well, I knew one person that had a situation like that where they would go to an office, but it was a shared space.
Mm-hmm.
And there was always one person that was just like really loud talking on the phone. And she was just like, I'm trying to concentrate. I came here so that I could concentrate.
Not have loud people.
Mm-hmm.
There's always someone though, no matter what you do. There's always someone.
Just write them into your book, I guess. Well, Talia, it's been lovely as always, and we're so excited that we got to do this for the first time, actually chat in person.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, everyone, if you haven't yet, read The Brown Sisters. They are some of our favorite books of the last years. And Danny is my personal favorite, Danny and Zaf forever. I love a romance reading hero. I'm a huge fan.
I think everyone I read, I was like, this one, and then
yeah, everyone you're reading, this one's your favorite at the time. Yeah. But yeah, Zaf forever. And I loved, we only got a little sneak peek of him in this book, but it was so him, the little bit that we saw, it was perfect.
Yay. Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Talia, what do you have coming up next? Because we know you're doing MONT's story for Avon, but do you have any other things in the works? I feel like you always have a surprise episode.
So I'm also, after I finish MONT's book, next on my schedule is I'm writing my first young adult romance for Joy Revolution, which is super exciting. It's Nicola and David Yoon's imprint, and they're super cool. So I'm super excited, but also a bit nervous because I've never done YA before.
Is it also contemporary?
Yes, so it's basically like what I've been doing with the Brown Sisters, but aged down. So it's about these two kids who are neighbors and they were really good friends growing up, and then they had a big fallout and now they're like academic rivals.
Ooh.
And they're competing. It's not even something you can win, they're just competing because they hate each other on this like wilderness enrichment program. They might get stuck in a tent somewhere, I haven't decided yet, but basically they're very much forced to work together and they really don't want to.
That sounds very fun.
That does sound fun. And like they're gonna have to remember why they were friends before. Oh, love
Yes.
it. Nice.
You want to tell everybody where they can find you on the interwebs also?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram and Twitter at Talia Hibbert. I have a Facebook reader group called Talia Hibbert's Hopeless Romantics. And I also have a newsletter, which is semi-regular, which you can find at taliahibbert.com.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. This has been so much fun.
See you next month.